Sëñ bi nag nakam
Jawale naka
good evening and good afternoon or good morning wherever you are watching us. You're watching Senegambia Observer. We are scheduled to have a discussion with Adrian Corish of the African Migration Advisory Centre, who's doing a tremendous job in relation to migration in West Africa. And he's had a signing ceremony today or yesterday at the Gambia Immigration Department. and we are expecting him to be with us anytime soon to discuss a few important things in relation to migration in West Africa. His group and associates have been very active in ensuring that migrants who take on the Atlantic Ocean, in a sense, who get stranded, who have needs that need to be addressed from the Gambia end or from the Spanish end. His group has been very active in ensuring that they get the support and the right amount of services that they require. So he signed a memorandum of understanding with the Gambia Immigration Department because statistics is important, data collection is important in relation to what the migrants need, as well as their families. For instance, if a boat is missing, data needs to be collected as to how many people have survived, where they are, what kind of support, and where they may be, either is in the coast in Mauritania or in Libya or in Europe somewhere. So they collect those kind of data and then disseminate that information. So if you can recall, there are a series of articles that we have published on the Senegambia Observer. So we get some source from them, and we thought it is important for us to have Adrian Corish with us today to discuss a few elements of that memorandum of understanding that they have with the Gambia Immigration Department. If you follow us, you'll see our story on our website and also on our Facebook and so other social media pages. But most importantly, we want to delve into the economics of migration, because if you can recall, there was another article that we published looking into what migration is costing. For instance, if you see the screen now, the Atlantic migration imbalance. What we are trying to put across is the cost of it, really, in terms of the upstream and the downstream. The upstream is the smuggling profit that is being derived from this phenomenon, that is the backway phenomenon, and that is irregular migration, some people call it. And who profits from it before the boats leave, even before the boats leave the coast of the Gambia, Senegal, or other West African countries into the Atlantic Ocean or the Mediterranean. Who benefits from it? So the analysis was done, but the person who did that analysis, Adrian Corish and his team, we hope to have him and discuss that further. And from the writings or from the publication that we have done as well, is up to 108,000 to 200,000 euros is being profited from boats, that is from a single boat, because a single boat would carry sometimes up to about 50 or more, at least 50 or more people, and each of them would pay a substantial amount of money, and this money goes into the pockets of the smugglers and criminals, basically. And the downstream, what the Spanish people pay, they pay in billions. What the Italians pay, they pay in billions, 2.6 to $3 billion, according to statistics that was published by AMAC, the African Migration Advisory Centre. And some of these numbers, we hope to crunch it, but for some reason, we are not able to get Adrian on. Once we have him, we'll be able to have an in-depth discussion onto some of these statistics and numbers that they have been able to publish. But most importantly, the pull factor and the push factor that we are looking at for us to discuss what is it that young people want, so much that they risk their lives to go to Europe using dinghies or boats to brave the Atlantic and the Mediterranean, to go to those places in pursuit of their dreams. But is it worth it? It's not all bad, but I think we 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 will be able to look into those. But the majority of the people who actually get to those places normally don't make it. So, but yeah, we have Adrian now. We try to get him on to our studio and get him and get the ball rolling. So we add Adrian onto our platform. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. Adrian, good evening. Welcome to the Senegambia Observer. I think he was on mute, but he's off mute now. If you can hear
Hello.
me, yes, welcome, Adrian. Welcome. Thank you for your time.
No problem. Good evening. Thank you for inviting me on your show. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Very good. The network is poor, so you only have audio for now. There's an issue
Okay.
regarding the visuals, so my apologies for that.
No, fantastic. Thank you so much, Adrian. I started off with introducing AMAC, and also as you know, with the MOU signing that you have done with the Gambia Immigration Department a few yesterday, on the 5th of May 2026. Maybe we can start off with that, and then go into what is AMAC, for instance. Maybe you can tell us who you are, what your organization do. Have we lost him? Are you hearing us?
I think you might have been talking about the memorandum of understanding between.
Yes, yes. I was asking about the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. What is it that you're trying to achieve with that signing that you've done with the Gambia Immigration Department?
Okay. What I'll do is let me just run through the build up to that because there's a actually have a signing yesterday, which is fantastic. Okay, my name is Adrian Corish. I'm the founder of AMAC, that's African Migration Advisory Centre. Basically, over the years, I've been involved in this irregular migration issue in my free time. Everything I do is from myself. I don't get funded by anybody. So I started the Missing Migrants database in relation to missing children that are lost on the migratory routes. So I was communicating with a lot of parents and taking details, and I built up a database of around 4,000 about 4,000, I decided to stop because I'm collecting anti-mortem, but I have no post-mortem data to connect to. So all I'm doing is collecting data, but going nowhere with it. So I decided to go to Europe and identify an organization who has a large database on post-mortem data, and that's the International Commission on Missing Data partnership agreement with them. That meant the anti-mortem data that I collected, that's the children, parents, children that are missing on this backway route, now had an opportunity to cross-match their missing data with so I realized I had to link with government or government bodies, which is fair enough. I found that the data in relation to irregular migration was very fragmented in the country, that there wasn't any central database really. So I decided to talk to Aisha Darbo, the director of NAPTIP, to involve her in a memorandum of understanding to cover the trafficking issues regarding data, which there isn't any. So that will also form part of this agreement with NAPTIP, that I collect data for the trafficking aspects of this. So then, obviously, then the Gambian immigration being the major player in this issue regarding migrants and irregular migration, After about, I think it must have been about a year and a half of due diligence, legal due diligence, etc. Finally, yesterday, they decided to come on board on a memorandum of understanding. They will be involved technically. We will be sharing data on demographic, geographics, and for the first time, they'll be able to access information on the movements, gender movements, male, female movements, hotspots, areas, locations that are in need of more attention than others. And also, I have signed a memorandum of understanding with the Canavan municipality as the official starting point for collecting data in the Gambia. So there's 18 wards in the Gambian, in the Canavan municipality, and I was lucky enough to secure a memorandum of understanding with them, to use that as the official platform for the collection of that data. Again, this will take another couple of weeks or maybe a month or 2 months to put into place. I have to secure funding because everything I've done up to now thus far has been coming from my own pocket. But now, because it's got to this stage and it's now become, I want to say, not a national database, but certainly on power to that, because this is civil society getting involved with government agencies, i.e. NAPTIP, who's under the Minister of Justice, Gambian Immigration, who's under the Minister of Interior. Immediately, I went to Minister of Interior before, maybe about 6-7 months ago. They were very happy with this particular missing migrant database initiative, and it was them who had directed me to immigration. However, with due diligence, and this is a very serious document, so they had to do a lot of legal due diligence on it. So finally, thank God, yesterday we signed it, and it's a milestone of an agreement in the sense that not just in the Gambia, but in West Africa, there's no humanitarian bridge between Africa and Europe connecting the dots regarding ante-mortem and post-mortem data. So that's where we're at. But one thing I want to say to you is that our organization is founded basically on the African Charter. The foundation is based on the Resolution 486, which is, the African Charter on Human Rights, People's Rights, and the commitments contained in the Resolution 486 on missing migrants and refugees in Africa. That's what we base our foundation on. So on those principles, anybody looking at any documentation, I always write that in there, that this is all to do with human rights and dignity. So thank God we have that, and we are looking for funding, corporate, international. Unfortunately, missing migrants don't come on any radar for funding, nor in the European Union or in the African Union, which I find absolutely disgraceful. There's absolutely no window or calls for proposals for missing migrants. Can you imagine? My problem with this is that European Union, African Union, they all scream human rights. We have the African Charter there, which I'm following and in line with, but hey, there isn't any funding, none. When I go to the European Union and I ask for funding, they say it's not on the radar, not on their radar. So can you imagine? My concern about that is the inequity that's happening regarding Europe and Africa, Can you imagine if this was happening in Europe? Can you imagine the amount of money that would be thrown at this? Yeah. So there is an inequity there, and I'm not talking about racism, I'm not talking anything like that. I just think it's disgraceful that there isn't any funding available for missing migrants, their parents. You got to remember, I'm talking to parents every day. They're dealing with grief every day. My wife died 6 months ago, and at least I was able to bury her. And still it pains me. But my grief, I could go to a grave. These people, it's a daily thing. Tabaski is coming, Ramadan is coming, Christmas is coming. So, we have to look at that aspect of the pain and suffering and the dignity of these people. Everybody has the right to be identified in death. That's not only a human right in Africa, it's a basic human right worldwide. So why aren't we adhering to it? Or why aren't the powers to be, looking at that? So I'm lobbying again hard for funding, not just from governments who have turned a blind eye. And I'm just hoping this memorandum of understanding, this framework, which is very layered, there's a lot of organizations involved. This framework will be accepted and people will fund it, you know. So that's basically it up to now. Again, it's very complex. Of course, this irregular migration is multifaceted. There's no quick fix to it, but it's a starting point in relation to trying to bring closure to families of missing children. Yeah. Sorry for being long-winded, but I can't hear you very well. So that'll just kind of give you some
because you were flowing very well, and information that I was going to ask about you just flowed it out very well. So
good.
Thank you for that.
Okay.
And I'm sorry about your wife's passing. You know, my condolences.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. No, we were married for 21 years, and we have 5 children. So there you are. Very sad. I miss her every day. But then I'm talking to people who have missing children. And I look at their grief, and you know what? When I talk to these people, many of them, thousands of them, I do find one thing that's coming up, which is strange, but not so strange, that some of these people pass away. They die, you know, with stress and grief. It's such, you know, it causes such the ripple effect of one person missing out of a family nucleus has a huge effect on a marriage, on a family, on community. It's just that people don't talk about it, or they're not wanting to talk about it. But hey, I'm always talking about it. But there you go. I'm kind of acting as a, you know, for the people who haven't got a voice, I'm trying to be their voice. Both the people who are buried in unmarked graves in Spain and Italy, Lampedusa, and all these places. I've been there and I've seen how they're treated. And for me, well, it's inhumane in the sense that there isn't any mechanism in place for them, you know.
Thank you for doing what you do, because you know, migration, especially the tragedies that comes along with irregular migration, especially this backway syndrome, is felt in every Gambian family almost. And like you said, grief is something that most Gambians or most Senegambians do not want to talk about openly.
They don't want to talk about it, no.
Yeah, and your organization has been, I know, because I made some research into it, that you guys have been doing quite a lot in relation to that, bringing closure to a lot of families in terms of their missing loved ones who just jump on the dinghy, go over to trying to go to Europe and unfortunately die along the route. Now, you for the Gambia government and Spain, for instance. Like you said, this is a starting point for them. But I know you've also been pushing forward for a joint kind of a task force. How are you on that?
Okay, well, I can't hear you very well, but I heard Spain, so I immediately know what you're talking about. So let me read you a segment from a report that I created, and I've been lobbying the Spanish Interior Ministry, along with the Gambian Ministry as well of Interior. The mathematical statement that you're talking about, it's a mathematical equation. Let me put this in the simplest possible way. Using the actual numbers, smuggling networks are making around 146,000 euros per boat. So if just 10 boats leave, that is about 1.46 million going directly into smugglers' networks. If 100 boats leave, that becomes 14.6 million euros. In the Gambia, the total prevention capacity is around 1 million per year at community level. There's only 7 Spanish personnel, boots on the ground. So mathematically, a very small number of successful departures can already equal or exceed the entire prevention effort. On the Spanish side, including mainland and the Canary Islands, around 100 billion or more per cycle. So we have smoking here. Spain gets 100 billion after now the balance is about 100 times more.
Unfortunately, we have network still. We have a problem with our network from the Gambia. Unfortunately, I don't know whether you can hear me. Your voice is still crackling. I don't know how we can resolve this network problem because the conversation
Yeah.
is quite interesting. Yeah, I can hear you now. You
Can you
rightly
hear me
mentioned.
now? I don't know. Do you want me to recap, or did you hear what I said? It's
I heard,
basically
yeah,
verbatim from.
yes,
It's
I heard,
verbatim from a report.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
Go ahead.
basically, what I'm saying, smugglers earn around 146,000 euros per boat. Prevention in the Gambia is 1 million euros per year. Spain reacts with 100 million after people arrive. Now the imbalance is very clear. Spain is spending 100 times more after arrival than what is spent before departure. And smuggling networks scale with every single boat that leaves. So the simple equation is this. Smuggling profit increases with each boat. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you very well.
Prevention prevention stays very small. Reactive spending happens after the damage is already done. This means the system is not balanced. And when prevention is small and reaction is large, but also late, the smuggler networks sit in the middle and continue to profit from every departure. Key point I wanted to leave with you. This is not about blame. This is about mathematics. As long as prevention stays low and reactive spending stays high but delayed, while smuggling profit per boat remains very high, then the system will continue to reproduce itself. So I'm asking the Ministry of Interior in Spain, the Ministry of Interior in the Gambia, to look very carefully at this structure, because unless the balance changes, the mathematics will remain the same, and so will the outcome. So basically, that's me in a nutshell. That's a report. You know, I did that maybe 2 years ago, and it's not changed. It hasn't changed, and it's only increasing. And also with the Spanish giving out these visas, I think they should have done more due diligence in relation to a social impact, because now every young person wants to aspire to securing a visa. I think you remember there was a visa
Yeah, that was a big kind
exemption
of
they were giving. Yeah, so
exemption.
now every young man, woman, and child wants to go to Europe because they think there's a free visa available for them. So the Spanish are doing wonderful on circular migration to a certain extent, but they should have done social due diligence in relation to releasing that statement. Why? Because it has increased the boat's departures now, and there's even younger people than ever before leaving. So everybody's thinking once they get to Europe, they're going to get to Spain, Gran Canaria. Gambia is a departing point. Let's get to Gran Canaria. We're going to get a free visa. You know, so they didn't do, and I complained to the Minister of Interior and to the gendarmerie here, the Garda Civil here, that they should have done, you know, a social impact before they released that statement. These people are vulnerable. These people are stressed. If you tell them that if you go to Spain, you get a free visa, and they don't know the actual particulars behind it, they're going to take the chance. A lot of them don't read and write. You're dealing with illiteracy. So, you know, please, you know, you have to consider what you're doing, you know. Now that has happened, it's a good thing to one extent, and it's a bad thing also to another extent. You know, so I'm
In
also
a sense,
taking that opportunity to talk about that. Yeah.
so in a sense, that has exacerbated the problem. That is a push factor
Absolutely.
that is making a lot of
Absolutely.
young people
Absolutely.
want to go
Yeah, I
on this
mean,
road.
if you use Ginic as a barometer, and I was involved in that last boat tragedy, you know, if you use that as a marker. After that, myself and Ibrahim, I called for a press conference to let everyone know the tragedy that happened. Lessons learned. I wasn't there to point fingers. I was only there to say, listen, this is what happened. Please, let's readjust things. Let's get things better. You know, let's not let this happen again. You know, into relation to search and rescue, just be prepared. I wasn't pointing fingers at Navy, government. No, I was just, you know, exposing it so people could talk about it and do something about it. After that press conference, thank God, the Gambian government and at Mr. Barrow, he decided to get heavy on it, and interception started. Every you know, mangrove tree was looked at everywhere. They were picking migrants from everywhere. and they were doing very well, and still are doing well. But the numbers are increasing because there's other pressure from two corners. One, the economic corner in the Gambia, prices are going up because Mr. Donald Trump has decided to do that war in Iran. So that has a knock-on effect to the economy here. If you want to go to turntable now, it's gone up an extra $5. So these have impacts back on the ordinary people on the street. So fish money is a problem. So at the end of the day, if a man can't give basic commodities in his family home, the wife is going to look at him. He's going to look at his options, and what are his options? So that is also another pressure cooker that's already now happening. So you have the Spanish giving out visas, so that's fantastic. Then you have a perfect storm where the economy now is, rising. The cost of living is high. And it's going to increase. I keep posting about it. Say, please be warned. Let the government look at subsidizing fuel, because that is the driving force for everything. Medical, food, you name it. It's part of fuel. So if fuel goes up, everything else is passed on to the cost of living. So, there are also two drivers. There are other drivers, but at the moment, it's a perfect storm for migrants. It's just a perfect storm for smugglers to make money. And that's why I'm pushing the Spanish government and the Gambian government to join hands. The Gambia is the sovereign nation. So they can send rockets to the moon in 1969, and thank God I was around to see it. If you can send rockets to the moon, surely to God, a bilateral agreement between two ministries, interiors, can't just get on the mathematics and say 100 times more on reactive. 100 million on reactive, 100 million on 1 million on prevention. Doesn't that do the mathematics? It makes sense, It makes sense for the resources perspective. The Gambian Immigration Department are bursting at the seams, so are the police. They're doing their best, but they don't have the resources or the manpower to get into this, So they need help.
I see your point, and it makes sense to propose a joint kind of task force that will make things better for the Gambia.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Look how much it's costing. 100 million euros. Come on, do the mathematics. The detention centers, the search and rescue, the asylum processing, the legal aspect, because they are also tied into human rights. Mind you, I have to question their human rights at times. But it makes sense that they need to offload some of that 100 million and get into prevention. And really, if they're serious about irregular migration, get into it. Start spending money in the schools. I have some lovely school prevention programs. Thank God now Bakoti School is going to do a memorandum of understanding on a teaching program, a migration prevention teaching program. But should a civil society like myself, unfunded, unaided, be doing this without support? How many people have I knocked on? How many doors have I knocked on? People need to wake up.
Absolutely.
They need to wake up and not talk to. I'm not talking about IOM. I'm not worried about all these people. They have their income streams. But I'm saying about grassroots level civil society, and it's not just me. There's others. Ibrahim Adrami, all of these people. We're doing our best. But if you don't get support, sometimes you'll get tired. Say, well, enough is enough. Yes, this is not rocket science.
A lot of reports, especially from Ibrahima and from your end, almost every week. Migrant boats capsizing. This is what happens
every week. Every week.
It keeps coming and it keeps coming, and it boils down to the pull factors that you mentioned, because the Atlantic route dangers are there, and almost everybody knows what they are. But still, young people are undeterred. Why do you think they still risk going back? I know you've mentioned a few, pull factors.
Okay, well, I mean, there's a couple of driving factors. Like first of all, I have to say, social media, TikTok, and all the TikTok decisions and diaspora. These guys, what do you call them, semesters, sending back photographs, coming here with fancy cars, taking out reports, getting the young girl, all this stuff has impact on young people. You got to remember these are children, so you've got to treat them like that. They're children, so they're going to be influenced by social media, by diaspora, by semesters who come back and they go out to the ports, they get that big car out, they get the nicest girl in the village, and all these things. and also the money aspects, you know. They're living in a village, there's grass huts there. Now, if they go there, they can start building a nice, fancy, nice concrete block house with their parents. Now, all of a sudden, they get, you know, pushed up the ladder of respect. So it's like that, you know. So there's a lot of peer pressure for them to do it. But what I have learned through the last couple of years, it used to be a case that the family members would push their young children to go, and they would sell land and sell cattle and livestock or whatever to, you know, to support their journey so that they could get a better life for themselves, which 9 times out of 10 doesn't work out that way, and they lose their life or never heard of again or displaced. So the situation now is children are leaving. I mean, I've had pictures, people ringing me, my son of 13 years of age, 14 years of age are leaving compounds. Yes, just to go on this backway journey. They feel it's a rite of passage, you know, and all of this. So, okay, the drivers, right. What I'm working on is a migration prevention school program. It's going to be in Bakote School, one of the biggest schools in the country. It's got 4,000 students there. I'm in the process of signing a memorandum of understanding there to teach children about irregular migration and regular migration. And there is a way to go to Europe by aeroplane, not a boat. Children at school from the age of 8 upwards need to know about this. They need to be educated in school. So they're the decision makers of tomorrow. This is not rocket science, you know.
Yeah.
So I've got this beautiful program, very simple. I've written some books for that particular school program, and they, thank God, are into doing it with me. So I'm very pleased.
Okay.
Again, you know, schools are a big part of this, you know, because people can't be making decisions on TikTok or semesters or whatever. Now, another driver that I've also recognized as well is minimum wage, you know. I've seen police officers going on boats. I've seen, you know, immigration officers in their bloody uniform getting on boats. So if a salary can't, you know, pay for the commodities, you know, that they need in their home, a rice bag of oil, sugar, you know, all these things, basic commodities, then, you know, then their options are limited. So I'm also appealing with the new, with this election coming up this year, NPP or whoever, UDP or whoever's running for this new election, that include this in their manifesto, that they must increase, please increase the minimum wage.
The minimum wage.
Yes,
I think the
please,
wages are
please,
running away from
please. Put it in your manifesto, yeah.
Inflation is running higher than the wages increase in the Gambia. I'm sure. I have 2 of my colleagues, Pamodu Fall and Binan Gay, online as well. They also
Okay.
in very much interested in migration reporting and so on. Pamodu, if you can hear us, you've heard what Adrian has been saying about his memorandum of understanding with the Gambia Immigration Department, as well as the need to have a task force between the Gambia and Spain, which would be very beneficial for both countries, as well as his efforts in ensuring that the young people are, you know, educated on irregular and regular migration. I like his quote when he said, "The best way to go to Europe really is not via the boats, is via the plane." What have you got to say so far, Pamodu, or add on to what you've heard or want to ask?
Can you hear me, Sam?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear.
I think initially we just have to say a big thank you to Adrian for what he's doing in the country and across the region as well. It's quite commendable. One thing I have really taken from what he has been saying is the pedagogical side of things. Go back to the school, teach the young kids, especially you and I live in the diaspora here, and we know a lot of people who came to the Western world through the right route, especially people who came here to educate themselves and then have lived a better life here because of education. People who came here as visitors, had their visas given to them as visitors, but went on to study and become, you know, very, very big stakeholders in the international world today. That is what we should teach in Gambia. And I understand most of the things he's saying would just revolve around more education, political commitment. The push and pull factors are there. You know, he spoke about the semester syndrome, coming back home and, you know, doing that kind of spending and all of those things. But I think this behoves on all Gambians who go to Gambia to talk to people, talk to the young children. You know, it's not bad to have aspirations of traveling. It's not bad to have hopes of traveling. But think about it also. Think about the most important part of traveling, that is your life. If it goes to a point that you are desperate to travel because you think there is nothing there for you at home, it becomes a difficulty. But I think that's a fallacy. There is always something for you back at home, to rely on, to depend on, or to engage yourself upon to get something.
Yeah.
It's just the way of, it's the perception. I think it's the perception that we have to change. We have to bring a new narrative of, you know, there is I think our colleague Harun Drame was engaged in this. It's a mantra they call judo fi take fi, something like that. I think that is what
Born here and make it here.
Yeah, I think that is what we should try to propel now.
Yeah.
If you go to Senegal,
Adrian also mentioned that some people, when they go to Europe, for instance, on TikTok and on Facebook, on other platforms, they will be portraying some kind of life that, you know, like it's an easy life. That also is a factor that when most young people see this, oh, I know Pamodu who's been with me in the same kind of street. We sit at the corner, drink a tire. Few months down the line, Pamodu is, you know, sending his, you know, pictures by a Lamborghini somewhere in the middle of Rome or so, and then the other guy who sees it is, I must also go. So that is also a problem as well.
I think,
And
yes,
you
Tom,
know,
I think
yeah, go ahead.
This is about the narrative. The narrative. We have to work towards the narrative. So you and I, being media personnel, we understand what disinformation, misinformation gives out. So this is an effect of disinformation and misinformation. You understand? If you sit on any social media platform, especially TikTok, you start talking about this, and then, you know, they will feel they are living a good life. To be fair, they will feel they're living a good life because they've left the trenches, they've left the villages, or they left the hoods where they had very hard, difficult lives, and, you know, came into an environment and they are given a token of hope. And that token of hope is what makes them go on social media and start talking. But this is not the reality. The reality is it is difficult for them as well. That's the reality. In my view, that is the reality. So the narrative that they are giving there is not the real narrative. It's just a narrative that suits them and that try to spread disinformation and misinformation, because we have to work on this effect of misinformation and disinformation locally.
Yeah,
You
okay.
know,
I'll come back on that, but to Biran, who is also online, is a colleague of ours in the Gambia. But you know, Pamodu, if you look at also the uncles and the aunts and the brothers and sisters who live abroad are mostly financing these journeys. Don't you think so? That is also something that needs to be done in that regard, as far as sensitization is concerned as well.
that is very right. That is very right. I think this all goes down to the pedagogical side of things. What I'm saying, we have to bring back our social fabrics. We have to encourage people to stay, and we have to let them know that you know, even you're that aunt and uncle or father or mother who sends you that money, to take the back way. Do not live in peace whilst you are embarking on this journey. They go through hell, you know, because it affects their mental well-being. You know, you understand what the mental health of people can reach to, you know, the level of mental health that they go through, financing their nephews, their nieces, and all of these things, their family members, or even their friends. I know someone who did that, and then he had been going through the toughest of times in his entire life, because all he was thinking is, how about if he doesn't make it? How about if he dies? What would happen to me personally? So that is the question you should ask before you put your money in there. Think about, if I finance someone to go through this route, what would happen to me if that person doesn't make it? What kind of weight would I carry on my back and in my brain for the rest of my life thinking about this? This is also something that we have to do, and we have to try at all means to discourage this. We tell people that don't do it, please don't do it. It's not worth it. You know, it's not worth it. we are mostly people of faith. What is meant for Caesar must come to Caesar. You understand? So it takes time and process. There is a process to everything. There's a process to success.
Absolutely.
So
yeah, Biran, let me come back to you want to say something, Adrian? Maybe Biran, some reaction.
I just want to react a bit. Yeah, he's correct in everything he says, and thank you very much for your support. I'm doing this basically as a humanist. I'm a humanitarian at heart, but thank you. It's nice to get mentioned like that. I really appreciate that. Yes, you're 100% correct about the narrative, but something else I want to talk to you about quickly, which nobody's talking about, which is the recent examination statistics from West African Examination Council, WISE. I don't know if you know that organization, the WAEC. Yeah. West African Senior School Certificate Examination. This is something very interesting. For the last 3 years, I've been studying and looking at the trends in relation to demographic imbalance. At the moment, this country is suffering a demographic imbalance in that in all the working sectors, from the fishing to mechanics to every sector in the country here, it's all foreign workers. So you go on the Gilly-Gillies, it's Nigerians, Sierra Leoneans, Guineans, Malians, they're all here. Yep. I've never seen such an influx of countries surrounding Gambia, in Gambia, working. Remember that. So there is now an imbalance. This is why these people are here, and thank God for them. Otherwise, what would we do for masoners? And, ask Taff himself, Taff. He'll tell you he finds it hard to even get a carpenter. To get a proper mechanic, well, forget about it. Electrician, forget about it, So this is another point. Now, if you look at the WISE results, and I don't know whether you can hear me, I can't hear you very well. But this is the breakdown. The examination cycle, a total of 20,608 candidates sat the WISE exam, with female candidates outnumbering male candidates, both on a ratio of nearly 2 to 1. Now that breaks down to, and this is 2026, 7,541 male candidates, 6.6%, 13,068. That's a female candidates is 63.4%. So you can see there is a situation in the schools, because I've been visiting a lot of schools, and there's a serious imbalance. And you have schools that were predominantly male are now female. Okay, and Bakote school there that I'm going to work in, the imbalance is huge, and they're suffering for it. Now, you probably beg the question, well, where are all these young boys going? Well, obviously, economic pressures in the household, demand for agricultural seasonal labor, lack of employment opportunities, increasing interest in irregular migration is the key. So if it's a case that, the government don't look at this, I mean, this is verbatim. This is like from the report itself from WISE. You can go online and see this. The government really needs to see this. If you've got a ratio of 2 to 1, you've got a serious problem. At the moment, young women in villages finding it hard. They're finding it hard to find marriageable husbands. Can you imagine? Okay. So the social impact of that is you'll have men marrying women for the sake of marrying because they need children before they're 30, and it's a cultural norm. And if they don't, people are frowning on them. And all of these social impacts that it has on this demographic imbalance. Nobody's talking about it. I'm probably the only one talking about it, but it's serious. We have a huge influx of foreign workers here, more than I've ever seen in my life before. You just have to get on a gilly-gilly from here to Tipper Garage and listen. That's all you've got to do. And all you'll hear is Nigerian, Sierra Leonean, Malian, different languages, other spells. I've nothing wrong with it. If they're not here, who else is going to pick up the baton of the work? But they're not here for play, and they're not here to enjoy. They're here to make money. So this demographic imbalance, it's an anomaly, which I'm trying to get my handle around it, because people say, well, there's no work. Well, okay, go down to Tangi. I've asked some of these push guys that take stuff from the Gilly-Gillies in pushes. They're earning $600, $700 a day by using a wheelbarrow that costs maybe $1,500. You know, you go to the sand mines, it's the same scenario. The boys that are using the shovels, loading those trucks with sand, they're not Gambians. I'm sorry, they're not. You know, so we also have to ask the question that has to be asked. You know, is it a question that the narrative is so big and the belief of going to Europe is more important than doing hustling here? Your last contributor mentioned it. He said it. You can make it here in the Gambia. Of course you can. Or you go away, you educate yourself and come back. You know, so there are job opportunities. So everybody's talking, but there's no job, there's no jobs. I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that. If you see the influx of workers here, ask anybody in industry here, captains of industries, Mr. Taff, ask him, Mr. Njai, ask him the question. How many Gambians have you in your construction sites today? Today, the 5th, the 6th, or whatever it may. He'll tell you quite clearly, they're all foreigners. So let's look at this. This exam results itself, 2-1, is enough to have an alarm bell, or definitely the political parties coming up in this election should start looking at this and say, hey, the Gambia is the smallest country on the continent of Africa with the youngest population under the age of 25. I mean, this is not rocket science. You know, that's 60% of the population is under the age of 25, meaning that the youth education and employment outcomes directly determine the country's future stability and development trajectory. So if all these are pointing in that way, the trajectory is going somewhere where it shouldn't be going, and it's negative. It's not positive. So my fear is this. If the imbalance is going to be even more, where is the future of this country going? Where are the brains to take this country forward? Because children are leaving school because they don't see that education is going to give them anything. Because there's no minimum wage to give them the incentive to have a disposable income. Because they don't have a disposable income on the money they're earning. And there hasn't been a minimum wage. If you look at the statistics, I think the minimum wage is 50. It's very small anyway, since the last time it was reviewed. But it should be on parity to the cost of living and the GDP. You know, you've got to understand something, gentlemen. Remittance, and you're all part of remittance, and thank God for you. Otherwise, the GDP of this country would be down the toilet without remittance. And I think remittance dependency by Gambian government, please review your manifesto. Absolutely. Review your manifesto on light industrial industries to come here, create jobs, but talk about remittance as not being as so dependent on remittance, because you are, and you're setting yourselves up for a big, big problem. Look at the mathematics. Look at the world economy. You know,
it's almost about 30% of our GDP is remittance, almost that amount of money. So, which is huge, and the dependency on that is really, really huge, from government level to domestic household levels. That is really hardly a good sign, and it's a crazy indictment of the system. Biran, I can let you go. Come on board, and what have your reaction so far?
Well, definitely the statistics that Adrian just read here paints a bleak picture, and it is really worrying looking at these figures, and also considering the number of interceptions made by the Gambia Immigration Department just over the weeks ago. Uncountable interceptions, everyday interceptions, but yet people keep bracing up for the sea. So it calls for a holistic approach to really get to the bottom of this as a nation, as a society, to really at least reduce the phenomenon.
Yeah.
I also have a question.
Go ahead.
I'm amazed. Yes, I'm amazed that the African Migration Centre has signed a memorandum of understanding and trends
Biran, your line is crackling.
And also a call to have at least that task. Yes, so with that task force, I think we need to channel, as a country, we need to channel our efforts towards the root causes, and I think this man has highlighted a lot about the preventions, which Pamudu to buttress on a very important point. That is, we must get back to the roots. We must get back to our societal fabrics. Try to enlighten the kids to be the architect of their own decisions, not to be just taken along by this fancy on.
Yeah, I think your line is terrible and we could hardly hear, but the gist of what you're saying is understood.
Unsustainable.
Yes, Biran, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Your line was actually terrible. It was crackling, but we got the gist of what you were saying. Holistic approach, as well as going back to the drawing board. But we've been going back to drawing board for a long time. I think almost every week or every month you will hear workshops here, workshops there. Do you think, gentlemen, that is is a solution, but do you think that's the only effective solution? Because as far as I know, it's only few, that are going down to the grassroots, talking to young people about this phenomenon. But most of the time, you see workshops here, workshops there.
I agree with that.
Indeed, that's quite true. We need to get to the bottom, to the grassroots level, to ensure that the messages reach out to these young people who are vulnerable. They could be lured into these journeys that are just meant to benefit the smugglers. And also, as a country, we also need to get legal regulations that could be used as a benchmark to prosecute anybody who is being caught or who has been caught doing the smuggling. In my view, that is one of the biggest factors which is not addressed by the government. So in my opinion too, I think the government is a bit reactive, and here and there they receive reintegration support for these migrants, but there is no accountability mechanisms about how these funds are really spent, whether it reaches the targeted beneficiary.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, the European Union too, in my view, contributes to some of the especially their efforts towards curbing this irregular migration by funding the Tunisian government, the Libyan coast guards, and those North African coast guards to intercept migrants in dangerous waters. So, in my question, I think I would ask Adrian to deliberate a bit on that. What do they think should the European government and European governments do to help, instead of intercepting these migrants at seas and later repatriate them back? Because many people would just go. Ibrahim is a perfect example. He had tried this journey.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what, he must have been intercepted.
Yeah.
But he still keeps going. He still keeps going.
Yeah.
So it also boils down to, yes.
Okay. I think it's a very good it's a very good point. Sorry for interjecting there. Is it okay for me to talk on that subject?
Yes, yes, go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Again, my research also showed, as part of the gaps in relation to irregular migration, was the reintegration program that the IOM, an intergovernmental organization called the IOM in the Gambia, it's funded by the European Union by huge amounts of money yearly. It's not working. The reintegration program is not working. Okay, the European Union have agreed. Quite.
Yeah, we're having problems with the networks again. But that's a very interesting point. The IOM intervention, the intergovernmental organization, helping out, but it doesn't seem to be working.
The fact of the matter is, I'm going to report this, and I've sent it to the Vice President of the Gambia, Mr. Jallo. He's seen it in relation to Gambia has to get more proactive in relation to regular migration and the returnees and the asylum people. I hate to call them returnees. Okay. The IOM, they're not doing their job. They're not audited enough by the European Union. The last audit on IOM, look it up and look at the remarks from that audit. They're not audited enough. Yes, there's millions coming into this country, but it's a numbers game, gentlemen. This is an organization funded by the European Union because they need to repatriate. They don't want to have as much people, refugees there. It's a door for them to open in another country. And really, who's checking them? Is the Gambian government auditing them on human rights violations? On any of that? It's quite clear it's not working. The social impact, right? Let's look at the social impact. How many young people fall through that door of IOM, knock on the door, get whatever little bits and pieces they get. They're not repatriated properly to their families. They don't have any mental health care because the healthcare system in this country is back in the 1800s. I don't know whether you know it or not, but the Lunacy Act back in the I think it's 1830, something like that. It's from British colonial Britain. That's the Mental Health Act in this country. Can you imagine? So they're coming back with migration post-traumatic syndrome. Yeah, these young people are traumatized. What they've experienced in their journeys, none of us as elders will ever experience. So do you think giving them some livestock or some money just to run a business, that's not about that. It's about getting them back into functional human beings after their horrible, it's absolutely disgusting what I see these young people going through. They don't get repatriated back to their families, correct? The love is not there. They're met at the airport with epilepsy and put into a bus, for fuck's sake. Excuse the language. They need to be repatriated with love and care. And as citizens of this country, they're treated like criminals. And what did they do? What did they actually? They took themselves on that backway journey for a better life, for not just for themselves, but their families. What's wrong with that? Stop criminalizing it and meet them at the airport with their parents, involve them parents. People that their bed now has been slept in by somebody else. Let the love kick in, Governments are too hot heavy, They're meeting them at the airport with epilepsy, you got to move there, you got to. The system is broken, As that gentleman said, holistic. We're all human beings. These are young people. For God's sake, treat them as young people. They're not criminals. Absolutely not. Take the word migrant out of it. They're failed asylum seekers that failed. That's it. And let's look at IOM and let's, as the Gambian government, Minister of Interior, whoever is over them, they're an intergovernmental agency, look at them and look at the statistics of the success stories. Yeah, you'll roll out a lot of success stories on Migration Day, but the actual reality, the European Union will say it's not working. Well, obviously it's not working. There's no mental health care act here that will help these people. There's no specialists here to treat them. So you're giving them money to go on, you know, we'll train you for a week, 2 weeks, and then you can do no career guidance, no counseling, no nothing. Yeah, there's some money, go and do it. What? These are young people. They need structure. They need discipline. They need a father figure to correct them and put them back on the line for life to be functional human beings. But they're put out there back into society unfunctional. So they're young people, so they
Yeah, I can see the passion that you're expressing these sentiments,
you know,
and I think
ask the IGP
yeah,
about
yeah,
criminality in this country and young
yeah.
people. Look at
Mm.
Mile 2, bursting at the seams, it can't cope. One begs the question, why? You know? So I've knocked
Absolutely.
on the door and I've put together proposals that the Gambian government needs more involved in a reintegration program and a centre for these people.
This
You
is
know,
okay.
European Union fund the IOM, but it should be headed by the Gambian government. What does an intergovernmental organisation funded by the European Union know about actual cultural norms in this country? You know? So for me, please,
That,
Gambian
that,
government,
that,
they have my proposal, go for it, yeah? But otherwise, this is just going to go round and around. Multiples of billions will be spent on fancy cars, big Hiluxes, 2 million trucks, this and that. Where's the money filtering down? The sad part about it is grassroots organizations like ourselves, who sadly don't benefit from any of it, you know. All we get is the fallout, you know. Like, so I'm asking people to look at the Mental Health Act. Please create a bill, pass it through the Parliament, National Assembly, get proper post-traumatic stress disorder people here that have proper, you know, that can do this work.
psychologically, yeah. That's a
Please
good
do
problem.
that.
I think at some point the IOM, of course, they have a lot of things that they need to answer to, but
Oh,
also
please, yeah.
we will try and endeavor and get them on our platform to actually go into
Please
some of
do
these
that, yeah.
issues. Yes, that would be very, very good for our viewers to also, you know. Yes, you know, I mean, there've been a lot of workshops, those integration workshops here and there, but again, the boats keep going, and young people who are actually they've gone, they come back, they get integrated according to IOM. All of a sudden, you see them going back on those boats again. And that is something not working, like you said clearly. And of course, I hear you say, you know, mental health, you know, integration as far as the laws are concerned, but even from the family level, for instance, Pamodu and Biran, of course, you, Adrian, you've lived in the Gambia for quite a long time. Families, for God's sake, when their loved ones come back from Europe, they will be the first people to chastise them. Oh, you've gone to Europe, you've never done this, you've never brought this. So that also impacts on the lives of these young people as well.
Sam.
Yes, Pa.
Yeah, if I can just interject there. You know, fortunately, I am a youth mental health first aider. What Adrian has said in terms of the reception of these people coming back is very important, you know, because the PTSD exists. So these young people go through a lot of pain, a lot of mental disorder before they reach or they get intercepted. Even whereas they are deported from the Italies, the Spains, or anywhere, bringing them back is a lot for them to you know, just to handle at that time and to process. And these are factors that we need to put in place. The first point of call, that is the receiving point at the airport or at the seaport, they should be given that, you know, that humanitarian part of life that you will enjoy. Say, listen, boys, come, we are going to take you there, we are going to do this with you. Talk
I'm
to
on a
them,
conference call.
give
I'm on the
give
radio.
them, you know, give them good counseling, talk to them, and you know, like we say in all of Dalal and Hell, put them down and talk to them first. But then the other thing is, Adrian has been talking about this. These are factors that are, you know, deeply rooted in the system. IOM should do better. For example, reintegrating them in the system. It's just not to train them and give them money and let them go. No, it has to be a process. And I don't blame IOM that much, but I think there is a lot for them to do. But the most important part of things for me is the government. The government. Civil society is doing all they can, I would say. But the government community leaders, the cultural aspect of things is what we should change. We should, you you mentioned about workshops and things, but I think those things would not work. It's just a money making venture for many people. You go, you eat money, eat some food, and then drive your fancy car and go back home. But you're not targeting the grassroots. And like Brian said, holistic approach. And when you talk about holistic approach, it goes beyond talking. Schools, communities, create community conversations, because hardly you hear community conversations. For example, you find a youth leader in Talinding or in New Joshua or in Sarakunda or in Bundung for them to mobilize young people and then talk to them, tell them what is it about back way, tell them the false narratives, tell them the kind of perception people carry and that do not exist. And I think that will help a lot, because that's grassroots. That's grassroots. Talk to parents. Come on, go and talk to them. Because these are things that sometimes you are ashamed in the community if your friend goes to the back way and succeeds and is making some things for the family, building a house or doing this and that and that. You're ashamed as a young man, as a young boy. So these are things that parents should also take responsibility and try to stop all of those kind of things. These young people should be giving hope, and hope starts from going to school, not only going to conventional school, but also some skill schools. Go and learn some skills which will give you the opportunity to become who you want to be if you grow up, because there has to be a process, and this process has to be respected. If we do not respect this, and if we do not advocate for these processes, it's always going to come back to the same thing. We'll keep on talking and talking, like Adrian is saying, and there will be no solution. And government should take responsibility for the, remuneration is very important. He said you will see immigration officers who should help cope these matters will jump on the boat and head off. How about if that immigration officer was averagely or moderately remunerated? Would he have done that, or would she have done that? No. So these are factors that we have to consider. And he mentioned something also. I think this is a common saying locally in Gambia, that a generation of young men have been washed off our faces. Young girls, young women do not have the, I wouldn't say do not have the opportunity to get married, but the choices, the options are not big, because most of these young men are gone. A generation is being wiped out of young people, young men. And now it is not only young men, but also young girls leaving the country. So the desperation is not only for the boys, it's also for the girls. In every boat that you see, there is a good amount of girls and or mothers with their children leaving the country. Why? The government should take responsibility in answering these questions. It's not a question of blame, but it's a question of responsibility. And this responsibility is a national responsibility, is a social responsibility, is a community responsibility. And all of us should participate in taking care of or answering these questions.
I think that's a great point for us to also reflect back or give a feed, because we've been on for about 1 hour, 17 minutes. Yeah, I mean, the problems are there.
So, Sam, your audio is not is muffling.
Can you hear me now clearly?
Yes. I
was saying, yeah, there are a lot of issues there. I mean, in my neck of the woods, if you go to around Madibu, if somebody even dies, it's very difficult to even have grave diggers in some of those villages, because young people are all gone. It's only the old men and women who are there. So, which is a very sad, socially, it's a very sad situation. And I think this conversation will continue, and then hopefully we will keep on putting the messages out there for our viewers. Of course, these statistics are there for a reason, for us to all reflect on it. They're very, very, very disturbing to read through all of this. But again, sometimes hard facts are there to make people awaken. And I hope that the government and stakeholders and families and everyone whose business it is to make things better will try. And Adrian mentioned something very important here, which is the manifestos. We are in the political season. I would love to hear or see any of these political parties coming up with manifesto that will actually try and address this backway situation, not superficially on paper, but also concrete plans that will be on paper, but also practical ways of doing it. We want to see that in all
Some,
of these parties'
some,
manifestos.
some
Yeah.
these points you are mentioning about putting them in the manifesto, they shouldn't be just like you said superficial. They should be doable. They should be seen as doable actions. You understand? When they have their manifestos, let them look about the doability of things and explain to the people that this is doable. Not only say, oh, we're going to create this amount of employment, we're going to increase this, but you're not basing it on facts and on the doability of that.
How?
I think
That's what we
that's very
will.
important.
Yeah, I think from the media side or from our side as well, we should be asking these hard questions because
Indeed.
it's important
Very well.
we
Indeed.
we put them to test and ask how, because this is something that we are much passionate about. We at the Senegambia Observer to try and see impactful journalism, impactful kind of reporting that we want to do. Ask questions and also, of course, highlight in the stories that people are going through with the hope that it can make change in our society. Thank you so much, gentlemen. But Adrian, before we go, we'll come back again some other time. But what are your final thoughts before we conclude?
Okay, my final thoughts on the irregular migration are that the Gambian government will do the best they can. They've had a lot of interceptions. The Gambian Immigration Department is fantastic. Police, everybody's doing well. But there needs to be, they need help from the Spanish government. And I think this should be a shared responsibility. This Atlantic route needs to be a shared responsibility, both upstream and downstream. So I'll ask them to look at that in the up and coming election, to look at that maybe inclusion in the manifestos or in their political change of plans, because obviously the world is changing. So they have to actually change and adapt their manifesto. Also to look at the demographic imbalance that's happening and the look at that with the up and coming election, NPP, whoever, I don't get political. I'm just basically sitting on the fence. I'm just asking the governments just to look at this demographic imbalance and to check it and see how best, and also to try and put in migration prevention systems in schools as part of their curriculum. Please do that, because they need to educate children on this serious issue. This is a humanitarian crisis. Let's not mix words about this. This is a humanitarian disaster. Justice. So yeah, basically I'm saying this is an opportunity. The elections are coming. It's time for a clean slate, in relation to manifestos moving forward. The economies of the world are changing. Try and reduce remittance dependency, because obviously people in diaspora will be reducing their income because of their stresses. They'll be spending more on electricity and car insurance and food and stuff. So that reduces their disposable income to give to remittance. So in 6 months' time, people are going to start feeling it. Even you guys that are sending money home, I'm sure you are, as part of your support to your families. That'll be reduced somewhat. So let's look at reducing remittance dependency. And start looking at industrializing the country into light industry, high labor intensive industries to come here. The incentives that are there, they could be improved. But to look at them and review it before we're already feeling the shocks of the world economy. So let's get into that and look at dependency. And become more industrialized. Look at the schools for education on migration. Look at the demographics in relation to the male-female demographics, and gets really having, they're really going to have to just open a white page and write a manifesto and rewrite it to suit the world. The world is changing, and this irregular migration is also changing, and that has to be taken into consideration. Yeah, I mean, that's it, basically. Government to do the best, but there's things to be done, and I think this is an opportunity with the election coming, to review how the country's run moving forward, given the fact that we have the youngest population of 60% under the age of 25. I think it's important, you know. But they're doing their best. But they need help on the rail migration from the Spanish government, definitely, without shadow of a doubt. Yeah, and the alarm bells are ringing due to that particular results from WISE. Yeah.
Thank you so very much, Adrian. And just finally, how do one get in touch with you? Your website or contacts, and
Website, yeah. Let me give you my email address there now.
Yeah.
It's or do you want me to give my? Let me give you my phone number. It's 022 788 0058. That's 788 with
Yeah.
the prefix of 022. And email is Adrian Corish, ADRIAN CORISH at amacthegambia.org. That's AMAC, AMAC, Gambia, GAMBIA.org. And I'm happy to hear any views or to give advice or whatever. I'm here for that.
Thank you so very much, Adrian. This is
No problem.
important, and then we hope to be back at some point again to discuss further development as far as the memorandum is concerned. We wish you all the best.
Yeah.
With Gambia
Thank you very
Immigration
much.
Department. Yes,
Thank you.
definitely.
Thank you. No, I have to say to Director General Boach, he's a wonderful man and he's got a lot of vision for the department he runs. He's doing a magnificent job, and I have to say, hats off to him. He was able to come down to the civil society level and sign this memorandum. Really, I have to my hands out to him. Yeah, he's done a great job, and I'm so fantastic with the team, the irregular migration team. Maimuna Trawali, the head that heads up the irregular migration, doing a fantastic job. Thumbs up. Yeah, well done. Job well done. Thank you.
Fantastic. Pamudu, last words before we go, if you have any.
Sam, I think we should give credit to Adrian for the good job he's doing. He's doing amazing things, and he's doing them at personal contribution level. Yeah, we also have to give credit to the people who mentioned that are working towards solving these problems, like the Immigration Department. Of course, Gambia government is part of it. We have to give credit where it is due, but also we have to encourage people within the communities, because that's where things start, to approach this menace, I would call it, like Brand said, holistic, and then work on towards solving them. So my point is, let's just hold that mantra that judo fi take fi. I think it works, and it's going to work for us and for generations to come in Gambia.
All right, judo fi take fi, and the contact for AMAC African Migration Advisory Centre, +220-788-0058, or the email is being scrolled now on the banner. Get in touch with them, and of course they have lots and lots of from government, from NGOs, from our moms and dad, even people from the diaspora, whatever we can, media. Adrian is very active in terms of social media, but also he writes quite a lot of things, and you can see his passion through the writings that he does. And we would like to support from the Senegambia Observer to make sure that we do our part as journalists, as media people, to be able to get these messages across. Hopefully, we can make a difference. We thank you so very much, everyone who's been following us on our YouTube channel and our Facebook, and at some point on our Instagram for an hour. But we thank you so much for being there. This is our first live stream that we have done. So Adrian is our first interviewee on Senegambia platform, Senegambia Observer platform, on our social media platforms. So we'll continue to do this week in, week out, talking about different things that is affecting livelihoods of people or people's lives in the Gambia and Senegal and beyond as well. So if you hear is happening, is about to happen, or has happened in terms of human interest stories, let us know. info@senegambiaobserver.org, or you can reach us, or the editor at the senegambiaobserver.com. So our doors are open. Anything that is human related. Well, everything that we do on Earth, it is, but human interest stories that we are interested in. Send us those information, then we hope to follow and discuss about it, because there are certain things that have been said here that Adrian has mentioned that most people who are on our channel has not heard before, or even if they have, there are new dimensions that he's mentioned, and we hope that it will be of benefit to the rest of us as an eye opener, but also a reminder that the phenomenon, the backway phenomenon, is still active and is killing a lot of young people. Not only that, our societies, our community is being decimated by this phenomenon. The politicians, the alcalos, the local people, everyone has a say and a stake in it. So let's start educating one another, especially the younger generation, about this phenomenon, so that it doesn't keep going, it doesn't keep happening, and for a better situation in terms of irregular migration. Thank you so much, everyone, for being there, and have a good evening. Good night.